Let's talk politics with the co-leader of the Green Party, Russel Norman, joining us from the airport this morning. Morning, Russell.
Morning, Wammo.
And over the past week, you guys have released the clean water policy for the Green Party. How are you going to clean up New Zealand's rivers, lakes and wherever water lies? What are the main points of the policy?
It's got three main parts. So the first is about standards, water quality standards, standard for intensive agriculture practices, which there aren't any at the moment, standards for minimum flows in rivers and lakes. So it's about saying, actually, we're going to set some national standards. The second part is a price on irrigation water, 1/100 of 1 cent per litre, which would raise some money and also create a financial incentive to use water more efficiently. And the third part of it is using that money raised to fund a big clean-up program, particularly riparian planting and fencing. When you put fences around rivers and lakes and plant along the sides of them, you make a significant difference. It's not the whole problem, but you make a significant difference to water quality.
Don't scientists say that's one of the biggest things you can do to affect water quality is riparian planting?
Yeah, riparian planting and fencing, it has the great thing of keeping stock out. So we'd put in a national standard that says stock have to be excluded from waterways within 5 years. Because keeping stock out, stock when they get in water, they make a mess of it, they do their business in it and all the rest. The other thing it does is it slows down surface flow. So during heavy rain events, you get a lot of surface flow of feces and sediment over the surface and then into the rivers and lakes. And so having riparian planting really slows that down. And then you tend to get, associated with the sediment, you get a lot of phosphorus. It restricts that as well. Mm. What it doesn't deal with is the nitrogen, which is a huge problem going through the groundwater. So that's why you need these standards around stocking rates and fertiliser application to control the amount of nitrogen that goes on the field and then comes through the groundwater.
Right. Now, in reference to the irrigation charge that you guys are planning, the Central Otago Mayor said it's a joke, it's an absolute joke, and he said that under the Greens' new policy and proposed rate of 10 cents per 1,000 litres, we would have to fund an additional $1.76 million a year from our landowners. And he says you don't have to be a genius to work out what this would do to the viability of our local horticulture and farming businesses. He reckons unemployment will go up.
So MAF the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry put out figures yesterday looking at typical dairy farms in the Canterbury region. In the last year, 2010-2011 season, the typical dairy farm in Canterbury had a cash income of $2.2 million and a pre-tax profit of $500,000. So Irrigation New Zealand are claiming that the cost of our scheme on a large dairy farm in South Canterbury or Canterbury would be $40,000 per year. I think that's quite high, but even if that were accurate, it would be a $40,000 cost over $2.2 million. So it's a pretty marginal cost compared to what a big dairy farm is spending on a lot of other parts of the business, particularly fertiliser and stock, and not to mention what they spend already on the irrigation infrastructure. They just don't want to pay for the water; they're happy to pay for the infrastructure. So it does have it has an effect at the margin to actually incentivise the efficient use of water.
Does it also,
but in terms of the overall cost structure, it's pretty small.
Does it also effectively put a value on water as well? I mean, people who live in Auckland are well aware of the value of water because we're charged for it. I mean, I know that doesn't happen in every city, but it would put a value on water for farmers.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you're a big industrial user in Auckland, you're paying about $1 per cubic metre or $1 per 1,000 litres for your water. So we're proposing a price that's only a tenth of that.
Right.
And so, there are already strong incentives for big industrial organisations in Auckland to use water efficiently. But big industrial organisations, aka agribusiness, dairy agribusiness on the Canterbury Plains, they don't have that same incentive because the water is free.
Yeah.
So we think, we're into using price signals. And this puts a price on the use of water and incentivises more efficient use.
Okay, now just to quickly end on something else. Claire Curran, Labour Party MP down in there in Dunedin, had a bit of an online spaz about, I suppose, where the Labour vote is going, and saying that the Greens, you're cannibalising the left vote, you're taking it away from Labour. Will you stop doing it, please? Or something along those lines. Anyway, she says that you're taking Labour Party policies.
Yeah, I mean, you got to laugh. So Labor's just adopted our capital gains tax policy.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of other policies. Well, actually, I want them to adopt that policy. I want National to adopt that policy.
Yeah. But isn't it true?
That's how we produce change. It's great.
But
we're not stealing theirs.
Yeah, I found the statement quite odd, because isn't it true that over the past 10 to 15 years, policies that seem to be a bit on the fringe, Green Party policies, have been mainstreamed over the last 10 or 15 years by both Labor and National?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about carbon pricing or climate change policies, there's been a significant move. I mean, the Greens have pounded away and made a bit of progress on that. You think about policies around public transport, walking and cycling. I mean, as terrible as, this government is, they didn't can the electrification of the Auckland Rail network, which is one of the things Greens got out of the last government. So, Greens lead change, and others follow. That's great. It
sounds like she's freaking out a bit, but it also sounds like she might be happier in the Green Party. Would you be offering her a position?
Our list ordering process has already been done. The members have voted already, I'm afraid.
Russel Norman, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Okay, cheers very much.
Cheers. Co-leader of the Greens there, 22 minutes.